Happy New Year and welcome to the very first Learning with Friends for 2024. I have a fun technique today. I've never done it before, but it's been in my to-do list of techniques, I guess you could say, for a long, long time. And I always thought, oh, it looks a little strange. I'm not sure, but I finally decided to play with it over the week I took off from making a video. So last week I played with it and was really surprised how easy and fun it was. And I probably enjoyed it because it kind of takes me back to what I consider my roots. I like to make a mess, and this technique is messy. I will warn you right up front, it is messy, and you're probably going to want some rubber or latex gloves, or your hands will get very inky. So let's go ahead. It's called Frosted Filter. I guess I should tell you what it's called. It's called Frosted Filter. And I think it's a pretty old technique because I've had it in my book of techniques forever and just have never tried it. So let's go ahead and switch to my other camera and get started. Okay, so the hardest thing or most difficult thing I think about this technique is figuring out what colors you want to use. You need 3 re-anchors, so the supplies you need are re-anchors, 2 to 3, I would say. I used 3, and you need a coffee filter. Now, I don't know if you have any of these kind of old types of coffee filters. Pull a couple out here. I have had these things for years and years and years, and I don't even have a coffee maker that uses them anymore. So I don't know why I kept them, other than maybe I knew in the back of my mind that someday I was going to use them in a technique. So they're just the regular old-fashioned coffee filters that we used to put scoops of coffee in and put it in our coffee maker and make a pot of coffee. And they apparently don't go bad because I don't know how old mine are, but I saw this little price tag on them. And at Kroger, they were $1.39. I wonder if there's an expiration date. I wouldn't think so. Then I could tell how old they were. But anything for $1.39 from the grocery store, you know it's got to be pretty old right now, right? So let's get those out of the way. I've got 2 of them out here. Because I'm going to do a take 1 and a take 2. And based on deciding to do that today is how I decided which colors I was going to use. So I am going to get, so in addition to re-anchors and your coffee filter, you do need a water spritzer and a piece of cardstock that you can adhere the filter to after you completed your technique. And then you'll need a heat tool to dry it. So we are going to use a heat tool. And then whatever else you want to make your card. So I've got my latex gloves on here. And we're going to start with some kind of a dish. Pie plate works. Doesn't need to have depth, but it helps because you are going to put water in here. But some kind of a plate, either washable or disposable. And the re-anchors I'm going to use, you're probably going to think are sort of a strange color combination. I've got petal pink, wild wheat, and old olive. And I thought it was a strange combination. But when I was trying to decide what to use for colors, I go to my handy dandy little color coach that I made up. These printed sheets are available if you're a demonstrator on the demonstrator website. You can print them off. I just cut each one onto a piece of the color that's the main color. So I started with wild wheat. And my first attempt, I used the top row here, wild wheat, old olive, and blackberry bliss. And I have to be honest with you, it kind of turned out into a really dark, muddy mess. And so that was one thing I learned for this technique. You do want to tend towards lighter colors, and you want to use more of the lighter color than the dark color when you make your ink droplets. So I exchanged Blackberry Bliss for bubble bath. I could have done that, but then I just decided to take Petal Pink. And if I look at Petal Pink, it doesn't put it with Wild Wheat, it doesn't put it with Old Olive, so who knows? This was my inspiration of colors. And then I just kind of went rogue. So I'm going to put my Petal Pink drops in first, and we're going to put several of these. And because this is the lightest color, we're going to put quite a few of these. So just kind of spread them out. And I'm sure today's card will, or technique sheet will turn out differently than the one I'm going to show you on a card. I do have 3 cards for you today with 3 different color combinations of ink. But you can see I've got quite a bit of Petal Pink here, probably more than I used the first time. And part of this is from lessons learned that more of lighter colors are better. And I'm going to add a little bit of the Old Olive. Not nearly as much as you can see. And then I'm going to come in and add some Wild Wheat. And I would call Wild Wheat and Old Olive probably equally intense. But I do think the Wild Wheat it was more saturated in color. And that's the other thing to pay attention to, is the colors will be much darker. And we're going to call that good. I think I put 4 of those in there. The colors on your finished product are much darker than they are when you use them for stamping. So that's another reason probably why the lighter colors work best. So next I'm going to take my water spritzer, and we're just going to spritz this until these colors start to run. Now, you don't want them to run too much together, because then you'll end up with a muddy mess. But you want them, you can see they are running, right? They're not just regular dots anymore. So I'm going to try it with that amount. I think I see some here where I'm just going to add a little bit more. I think the first time I did this, I probably added too much water. This is the most experimental part of it. And now we're just going to take our filter and we're going to lay this in this ink. And I can see already that this one is going to turn out much lighter than my first one did, because I do have a lot more of the Petal Pink ink in here. So we're going to pick it up and just kind of smush it together. Okay, now I'm going to set this aside. We are going to use this for take 2, but for now I'm just going to set it aside. And here's where your hands would be really inky, right, if you didn't have on your gloves. So carefully open it back up. It does not tear easily. And now you can kind of see what this looks like, but now we need to dry it. So I'm going to bring in my little handy dandy tray I use and lay this in here for just a minute and let me wipe off the most of the ink from my gloves. I will pick up again, but I don't want to get a lot of ink on my heat tool. So now we're just going to dry this. And you can start out on low. My directions said to use low, but I'm not that patient, so I dried it a little bit on low, and then I just cranked it up. I just watch it. You don't want it to burn, of course, but I didn't have any issues or concerns with that. And actually, it dries relatively quickly. And then what I recommend to do is when it's getting close to dry, just crinkle it again. And this depends on how much crinkle and aging you see that you want, okay? Because that'll add some more wrinkles into your frosted filter. And don't ask me why they call it frosted. There's no frosting involved. I'm going to get the rest of the way dry. And then we're going to set it aside for a minute before I show you the card. And we're going to do a take two. Let's take a bit. And you can punch it again if you want it more wrinkled. Let it dry while it's a little more wrinkled. Okay, so now you have an idea. Before I show you the next step of what we do to use it on a card, I'm going to do stage two. Or not really stage two, but probably a better term is take two. So I'm just going to set this aside to let it dry. And I'm going to bring this back. And I'm going to spritz it once more with a little bit of water. Because I looked at this and I'm like, I still got a lot of ink left in there. I wonder what happens if I do it a second time. So I'm just going to put a little bit more water just to dampen it up. And we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to lay this in here and let it pick up as much as it will pick up. Now, the part I actually kind of liked is that when I did this, you can see I don't have enough to get the whole thing saturated. But when I picked it up, I had white spots in here that I thought were really, really pretty. And you can take this and just kind of dab it here and there if you want to pick up a little bit more. Whatever you like. So let me get this out of the way. And this one is not that wet. So I'm just going to dry it from the side just so I don't get things sticking through here. I'm sorry about the noise with the heat tool. I know it makes a lot of noise. And I'm going to punch it up again to get some more wrinkles. Okay. For demonstration purposes, I think that is good. So I just want to show you both of these. So here is what I call take two, and here is the piece from take one. And see how different they look? But I think they're both really pretty. So I don't know, I wouldn't let that extra ink go to waste. I'd make a second one and just see how it turns out. If you like it, good. If you don't, it's fine too. So now let me show you how to use this on a card. I'm going to get my tray out of the way. And I am going to take off my gloves now, just so I can feel to make sure that this is really dry. Okay, it's got a little bit of dampness to it, so not bad. You probably could use it, but I'm going to go ahead and just dry it a little bit better. Obviously, you could also just set them aside to dry if you want to do too. Not sure how long that would take. I'm not that patient usually unless it's mandated. Okay. All right, I feel like that's pretty dry. So now what we do is we're going to use this on a card. And there's different ways you can do this. You can take your piece of backing cardstock that you want to use, and I've got wild wheat. I picked colors that kind of went with my my technique sheet that I made, but you could also just use white, and I'll show you on an envelope where I use mine on white, and I think that's pretty too because it lightens it up a little bit more. So what we're going to do now is there's different ways to do this. We can wrap this piece of cardstock, which is what I'm going to show you. Oops, wrong one. That's not going to work. That is temporary adhesive. So I'm going to take my stamp and seal here. And I'm first going to run it down each side. Uh-oh. My Stampin' Seal has not been nicely cooperating with me the last few days. And then we're just going to pick a section of this that we like. Either side is fine, doesn't matter. And we're going to lay it on that section. You want to make sure it extends out beyond. And then just press it down. Now, this is all good over here. We can use this for other things, and I'll show you how I used it on my card. But I'm going to trim this down because we're going to wrap this. So give yourself maybe a half an inch or so. And now we're going to take our Stampin' Seal again and put it on the edge. Now, I also did try it with liquid glue. If you're a green glue girl, it worked fine. I did find that the moisture kind of absorbed back into the filter. And so in order to get the glue to dry nicely or to dry well, I did hit it again with the heat tool on low that time. So there we go there. And now we're just going to put a little bit on this end. And I'm going to trim some of this off, just so I don't get so much bulk on the back. And you probably get the idea. You can fold this in the corners on a present, so like a present, like this. Probably a good idea. However you best like to wrap things when you're wrapping them with something else. This part is not critical, other than you don't want to get it too bunchy on the back, just so it'll lay on your card well. I did put it on with dimensionals, so then a little bit of bulk is fine. And you want to get it so it's fairly nicely, tightly wrapped. And there you go. That is your piece that you are going to use to decorate your card. Now what I did, I took this piece, I will show you my card. There's the card I made. I used the stamp set Notes of Nature, which is new in the January-April mini catalog, which went live today, yay! And this is the stamp set. And I used this stamp here with this little grid pattern on it. And I actually stamped, if I bring this up close, if you can see that, I don't know. Probably right there down in that corner, you can see some. I just sort of randomly stamped that on there before I put a die cut. Used another stamp from the set, the sleeves here. Stamped that on a piece of wild wheat. Also stamped the leaf itself, and then I stamped the sentiment over that with copper clay. The leaf was stamped in wild wheat. It looked a little dark, I thought, and so I die cut another one out of Very Vanilla and just made it so it just gave it a little highlighted edge. And I thought that just helped the sentiment pop just a little bit. The background is embossed with that crosshatch embossing folder from Basic Embossing Folders, an online exclusive. Now here's another way. I used one of my leftovers from this, and I adhered it to a strip. In this case, I did not wrap it. I just trimmed it on the sides. So you can do that. Also, there's no reason to have to wrap it. You can wrap it, or you can just trim it, or you can use a die cut and cut it. And if you're going to trim, just make sure your adhesive is very close to the edge and the whole thing is well covered so that it doesn't lift up. This is where I did use the liquid glue because then I could get better all over coverage of the adhesive. So that is my card. Let me show you the envelope, because here you can see on the envelope, I just adhered it directly to the Very Vanilla envelope. I did not put any backing on it, and then I just trimmed it so I adhered this with glue. The piece I had left over wasn't quite big enough to cover the whole thing, so I just added a little strip of wild wheat up there at the top. So that is card number one. Card number 2 is, again, the same technique, and the colors I used for this particular technique, card or sheet, whatever we want to call it, those colors were Balmy Blue, Highland Heather, and Bubble Dot. So those were all from the Soft Subtles family, and you can see still how much darker they are than you might expect from all Soft Subtles. The colors are just more intense when they come out of the re-anchor, but still pretty, right? Now this one I also did do a take 2, and let me just, I threw that one over here. Here was my take 2. And just compare those. Quite different, right? There's a lot of white in this one because there wasn't enough ink to cover every spot. But I love this one too, and that's why I saved it. I'm going to make something else with this one. And I honestly could have made one of these other circles, but I wasn't sure if that's probably a little too much, I thought. So this is a 5 by 5 or 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. I have lots of embossing on here, but this is the technique portion of it. That was made with the frosted filter technique. And what did I do on that? Oh, I had some extra. This one I used some of my extra scraps and made a piece for the envelope. And then on the inside, I used another one. These were all die cut with a deckled circle dies. So here again on these, all of these on this card, the front, the envelope, and in the inside, I just glued pieces of cardstock to the frosted filter technique, and then I die cut them with the deckled circle dies. So they die cut very easily. Like I said, just make sure it's well adhered over the entire surface so your edges don't lift. So that's my second card, and then my third card is made with Jungle Pals. This is a Stampin' Up! Celebration item that you can get. There are the little pals, the stamp set, which you can get for free with a $50 order. And then there are a beautiful set of dies that you can get with a $100 order. So you would need to spend $150 to get them both. But here I used, the colors I used on this particular card were Garden Green, Parakeet Party, and Granny Apple Green. And on here I used a lot of Parakeet Party, a little bit of Granny Apple Green, and maybe only 2 or 3 drops of Garden Green, because you can see where those are. It's pretty dark. And here I used some of my scraps to cut out some leaves that are in the Jungle Pals die set. So I thought that one turned out really cute. I was happy with that one. And here's the inside. I used the little bird. I do not know what kind of a bird this is. This is a sloth. This is a lemur or lemur. I thought at first this was a toucan, but I looked it up on Google and they don't have these little feathers up here. So I'm not sure. I couldn't find a bird that looked like this on Google. If anybody knows, leave me a comment, tell me what it is. But she wanted to be a toucan because they have lots and lots of colors. So that's what I painted her. All right. So those are the 3 cards for today. And again, Happy New Year. Let me flip my camera back. And we will get back to me. Okay. And we will wrap this up. Video number 1 for 2024 is a wrap. I hope you liked it. Remember your rubber gloves. You're going to want them. Otherwise, you're going to be full of ink. But I hope you give it a try. It's fun. It's easy. And if you don't have any of those old coffee filters because you're a Keurig K-Cup person like me, I hope they don't cost more than $1.39 that they did probably 10 to 15 years ago. I'm sure that's how old those are. So anyway, enjoy a Happy New Year. I'm glad you're here today. If you enjoyed today's video, give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, so we can learn stuff, new fun stuff together. And let's start off 2024 right. Have a great one, everybody. Thank you. Bye-bye.